The real tragedy is not the poverty of pocket, it's poverty of the philosophy. I've seen it 1,000 times. Two people, same job, same paycheck. One ends up wealthy, the other stays broke. Why? Mindset. One is a consumer, the other is a creator. One sees problems, the other sees patterns. One reacts, the other repositions. And I'll tell you something, your results are always catching up to your thinking. So today I'm here to hand you the blueprint, the mindset shifts that quietly separate the rich from the rest. Because money doesn't come to those who want it, it comes to those who think in a way that attracts it. I often tell people, if you want to earn more, you have to become more. Income rarely exceeds personal growth, and when it does, it never lasts long. That's the law of balance. Your life, your finances, your success, they will eventually adjust to the size of your thinking and the strength of your habits. I remember a time early in my life when I was working long hours, showing up every day, exhausted, and still broke. I thought hard work was the answer. But let me tell you something. Hard work without wisdom is just well-intentioned struggle. It wasn't until I picked up my first book on personal development that I realized I was working harder on my job than I was on myself. And that was the problem. You've got to learn before you earn. You've got to upgrade your mind before your money. If someone drops $1 million in your lap, but you haven't developed a millionaire mindset, you'll find a way to lose it. That's not fate, it's math. It's psychology. It's character. Wealth is attracted to maturity, discipline, and vision. And those things don't come from wishing or waiting. They come from study, reflection, and intentional growth. Now, I'm not saying you need to spend 8 hours a day buried in books. That's not realistic for most. But if you can find just 30 minutes a day, 30 quiet, focused minutes to read about money, mindset, business, or character development, it'll start to shift things inside of you. That's 180 hours a year. That's over 4 full work weeks spent growing your philosophy. Can you imagine what that kind of internal investment would do over 5 years? 10? It's the compound interest of personal growth, and the return is massive. I made a commitment early on. Every day I would read something that challenged me. I'd listen to people who were ahead of me. I'd ask questions that made me uncomfortable. And slowly I started to change. My decisions improved, my conversations deepened. Opportunities that used to fly past me started landing in my lap. Not because the world changed, but because I did. Your bank account will grow at the same pace your mind expands. So if you want to change your income, don't just chase the money, feed the mind. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned, and it came early, thankfully, is that how you handle the small things determines whether or not you'll ever be trusted with the big things. That applies to life, relationships, leadership, and especially money. I used to think I was broke because I didn't earn enough. But the truth was I wasn't broke, I was just irresponsible with what I had. And if you're careless with a few dollars, you'll be reckless with a few thousand. That's not opinion, that's cause and effect. I remember once I sat down with a mentor and told him I was ready for more. I wanted to make big money. And he asked me one simple question. Do you track where your small money goes? I laughed, like most people do, and said, well, not every little thing. He shook his head and said, then you're not ready. That stung, but it was true. I wasn't respecting the seed. And if you don't respect the seed, you can't expect to harvest. From that day on, I started writing down every expense. Not just the big ones. The rent, the car payment, but everything. The snacks, the coffees, the spontaneous nights out. And let me tell you, after just 1 week, I was shocked. I wasn't leaking money, I was hemorrhaging it. But I couldn't see it because small money is quiet. It doesn't shout. It slips through unnoticed. Unless you're watching. That's why I tell people, track every expense for 30 days. Every dollar, every coin, every swipe of the card. Because awareness is the beginning of transformation. And here's what happens when you start treating small money like big money. Your mindset changes. You become more intentional. You start making better decisions with what you have. And slowly, the universe, or maybe just your bank account, starts trusting you with more. Because money is attracted to order, not chaos. It flows where it's valued, where it's tracked, and where it's respected. I've seen people wait for a big break, thinking a raise or a windfall will fix their problems. But if you can't manage $500, you won't manage $50,000. You'll just make the same poor decisions, just with bigger numbers. So the principle is simple. Don't wait to have more before you get disciplined. Get disciplined now, and more will come. One of the great mindset shifts that changed the entire course of my financial life was learning to see money not just as a tool for spending, but as a force for building. See, every dollar in your hand has a job, and you're the one handing out the assignments. You can send that dollar out as a soldier, off to build your future, multiply, and come back with reinforcements, or you can send it out as a slave to buy something you don't need, to impress someone you don't know, to satisfy a moment that won't last. And once it's gone that way, it rarely returns. I used to spend money like it was a reward. Work hard, treat yourself. Bonus comes in, I'd upgrade something. Raise at work, let's celebrate. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for enjoying the fruits of your labor. But if you're eating all the fruit and planting no seeds, don't be surprised when there's no harvest. That's what too many people do. They work for money, and the moment it arrives, they send it back out to serve someone else's wealth plan. One day, I decided to flip that. I made a simple rule. From now on, 20% of every extra dollar, whether it's a raise, a tax refund, a bonus, or some unexpected income, goes straight into an investment before I spend a penny, before I celebrate, before I even think about it. That rule changed everything. It became automatic. No more emotion, no more back and forth. It was principle over pleasure. And slowly, what used to be a trickle turned into a stream, and that stream became a system. I put that money into things that grow. Simple things at first. A mutual fund. A course that sharpened my skills. Later, it was a down payment on a property. But the point wasn't where it went. The point was that it went to work. It had purpose. And the beauty of money that's invested is that it never sleeps. While you're resting, it's moving. While you're aging, it's compounding. While you're working, it's multiplying. So the next time money comes into your life unexpectedly, don't ask what you can spend, ask what you can build. Because the future isn't built on how much you earn. It's built on how much you keep and where you send it to grow. There came a point in my life where I had to ask myself a hard question. Am I building wealth or just staying busy? I was working plenty of hours, always tired, always moving, but not really going anywhere. And then it hit me. Time is the raw material of wealth, not effort, not even money. Time. How you use it determines what you'll have. And the poor, they've been taught to trade hours for dollars, show up, work hard, get paid, go home, do it again. Respectable, yes. But limiting? Absolutely. Because there are only so many hours in a day, that game has a ceiling. But wealth begins when you stop thinking in terms of time for money and start thinking in terms of value for freedom. The wealthy trade differently. They trade ideas. They build things that work while they rest. They invest in systems, assets, leverage, things that multiply effort. And to get there, you don't need to be a genius. You just need to start seeing time differently. I remember doing an exercise that changed everything. I tracked every hour of my day for 1 week. No judgment, just awareness. Where was my time actually going? And what I found was sobering. There were these dead hours, time I was spending on things that didn't move the needle. Scrolling, channel flipping, small talk, busy work. It wasn't that I didn't have time to build wealth, I just wasn't using it. So I made a decision, just 1 hour a day. 1 hour I'd normally waste. reclaimed and redirected. I took that hour and started using it to build something. I studied, I wrote, I planned, I made calls, I practiced skills. And that 1 hour, day after day, became a new foundation. So you don't need to work 16 hours a day. You just need to stop wasting the ones you already have. So if you really want to change your financial future, don't just look at your bank account, look at your calendar. Find 1 dead hour a day and turn it into something that pays. Because time is like money. If you don't tell it where to go, it disappears. But if you assign it to something meaningful, it starts to grow. The road to wealth isn't paved in overtime. It's paved in ownership of your hours. There was a time in my life when I feared debt like it was a disease. I thought all debt was bad, all borrowing was dangerous. But over the years, I learned something far more powerful than fear: respect. See, debt isn't the enemy. It's how you use it that determines whether it becomes your servant or your master. The truth is, wealthy people don't run from debt. They manage it, direct it, even use it to build more wealth. The broke, however, they use it to feel better, to buy now and pay later, to soothe the pain of waiting, or to decorate a life they haven't built yet. That kind of debt doesn't just cost money. It costs peace, progress, and eventually your future. I remember sitting down one day, overwhelmed by bills and balances, credit card statements, car payments, little loans here and there. It felt heavy. But instead of panicking, I decided to confront it with clarity. I made a list of every single debt I had. Then I asked one simple question for each. Did this debt build something, or did it just buy something? If it built something, an investment, a skill, a tool that was helping me grow, I labeled it productive. If it simply paid for pleasure, consumption, or convenience, I labeled it destructive. And just like that, the fog lifted. It wasn't about guilt, it was about strategy. From that day forward, I made it a mission. Eliminate the destructive debt first, relentlessly. No excuses. Cancel subscriptions. Delay gratification. Sell what I didn't need. Redirect every extra dollar to killing off the debt that was stealing from my future. And the moment I did that, my confidence began to return. Because now, I wasn't just surviving, I was steering. I was taking back control. Productive debt? That's a different story. That's a business loan that funds a venture, a mortgage that builds equity, capital that creates value. But even then, use it with wisdom, not emotion. You never want to be in debt to fund a feeling. You want to be in debt, if ever, to fund a foundation. So take a good look at every balance you carry, label it, learn from it, and then act. Because wealth doesn't come from avoiding debt, it comes from mastering it. Respect debt, don't fear it, and you'll never be owned by it. One of the most overlooked truths about wealth is this: it's rarely built alone. You can have ambition, discipline, even vision, but if the voices around you are filled with fear, limitation, and bad money habits, that influence will drag on you like an anchor. I learned that the hard way. Early in my journey, I was motivated, I was reading, I was learning, I had goals. But I was still broke. Why? Because I kept going back to the same conversations with the same people who thought struggle was normal and success was suspicious. People who laughed at budgets, who mocked investments, who thought saving money was something only rich people did. And slowly their thinking started to seep into mine. You see, poverty is contagious, but so is wealth. Your thinking is shaped by the people you allow closest to you. Their beliefs become your boundaries. Their excuses become your limitations. So if you're serious about building wealth, you've got to audit your environment. You don't need to cut people off, but you do need to be intentional about who's speaking into your financial life. Who are the 5 closest voices you're listening to? Do they challenge you or comfort your bad habits? Do they make wealth feel possible or make it seem like some distant fantasy for other people? When I realized this, I made a bold move. I started seeking out people who were further along, not just wealthier, but wiser, people who had financial habits I admired, people who spoke in percentages, not paychecks, people who talked about value, assets, and strategy, not just sales, splurges, and stress. And if I couldn't meet them in person, I found them in books, in podcasts, in seminars. I replaced 1 hour of casual noise with 1 hour of intentional growth. And over time, that shift in influence reshaped my thinking. I started to believe differently, plan differently, spend differently. If you want to elevate your financial life, start by elevating the voices around it. Find one new mentor, one new group, one new voice that stretches your thinking. Join a circle where saving is normal, investing is expected, and wealth is spoken fluently. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you do need to be in a room that makes you smarter. Your net worth will eventually mirror your network, so choose it with care. I meet so many good people, honest, hardworking, determined, who just can't seem to get ahead financially. And it's not because they're lazy. It's not because they lack ambition. It's because they're playing a game they don't understand. Imagine stepping onto a football field, no clue what the rules are, no training, no strategy, and then wondering why you keep getting tackled. That's what most people are doing with money. They step into the game of life without knowing how the money system works. They don't understand taxes. They've never studied interest. They think real estate is for other people, and then they wonder why wealth never comes their way. I know, because I used to be one of them. For a long time, I thought making money was the only thing I needed to figure out. But what you keep, what you grow, and what you protect, that's where the real game is. And no one ever sat me down and explained that, so I had to teach myself, slowly, one principle at a time, one concept at a time. I'd hear a word, compound interest, capital gains, depreciation, and instead of ignoring it, I'd go look it up. I'd study it, not skim study. Because money doesn't flow to those who guess. It flows to those who understand. If you want to take control of your financial future, make yourself a simple promise. Each month, learn one rule of the money game. Just one. Pick a topic. Taxes, debt, investing, assets, income streams, real estate, and dig in. Watch a few videos. Read one good book. Talk to someone who knows more than you. Take notes. Ask questions. And most importantly, apply what you learn, even in a small way. Because knowledge unused is like food uneaten. It might have helped you, but it won't. When I started doing this, something changed in me. I stopped feeling like money was this mysterious force outside of my control. I stopped fearing the financial system. I started to see patterns. Understand timing. Make better decisions. Not just in theory, but in practice. And slowly the game started to feel winnable. You don't need a finance degree to build wealth, but you do need to study the game you're playing. Because if you don't learn the rules, you'll always play at a disadvantage and you'll always pay for what you don't know. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about wealth is they think it's built through suffering, through misery and deprivation. They imagine millionaires as joyless savers, always sacrificing, never enjoying. But that's not it at all. The wealthy aren't miserable, they're strategic. They know the difference between now and forever. They understand that a little restraint today can create a life of abundance tomorrow. They're not saying no to pleasure. They're just saying not yet. Because when you trade short-term comfort for long-term gain, the rewards are far greater than the sacrifice. I remember wanting a new car. Oh, I wanted it badly. I had been working hard, making progress, and I thought, I deserve this. But before I signed the papers, I paused. I asked myself one question. If I wait 30 days, will I still want this? Or will I have a better use for this money? That was a game changer. 30 days passed, and the desire faded. I didn't want the car anymore. I just wanted what it represented. And instead of driving off the lot, I invested that money into something that actually grew. That decision paid me every month for years. The car would have lost value the moment I turned the key. That's why I created the wait 30 days rule. Any non-essential purchase, if it's not food, shelter, or something that builds wealth, goes on hold for a month. Just a pause, not a punishment. And here's the secret. Most of the time, the desire fades, the emotion cools, and logic steps in. You regain control, and you don't feel deprived. You feel powerful, because you're no longer at the mercy of impulse. You're operating from vision, not reaction. See, gratification isn't wrong. Enjoyment isn't wrong. But immediate gratification, that constant itch to have it now, to feel good now, to impress now, that's what keeps people poor. Wealth is built by those who can delay the now for the more. Not forever, just long enough to let your money catch up to your dreams. So the next time you feel the pull of a shiny new thing, take a breath. Wait, give it 30 days. If it still matters, you'll know. And if it doesn't, you just saved yourself from funding a moment and gained ground toward a lifetime. The goal isn't to deny yourself. It's to design a life where you never have to. There's a strange temptation in the early stages of building something valuable. We want to announce it. We want people to know we're making moves, that things are happening. And in this world of constant sharing and showing, it's easy to confuse visibility with value. But let me tell you, real wealth doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. It moves quietly. It grows silently. It doesn't boast. It builds. I learned this early on. I remember when I started seeing a bit of progress. Nothing major, just small wins stacking up. My instinct was to talk about it, to show people I was on the rise. But then I looked at the people I respected the most, the ones who truly built something enduring. They weren't loud, they weren't flashy. They weren't constantly broadcasting their next move. They were focused, they were consistent, they were busy doing the work, not performing for approval. And over time, their success didn't need a press release. It spoke for itself. So I adopted a simple philosophy. Build quietly, celebrate later, not out of secrecy, but out of strength. Because energy that goes into showing off is energy that could have gone into leveling up. Every dollar you use to impress is a dollar that isn't invested. Every post you make for applause is time you didn't spend getting better. And over time, those little diversions add up, not just financially, but mentally. They dilute your focus. They weaken your edge. Instead, I chose to reinvest. Every small win went back into the next project, the next idea, the next asset. I didn't need validation. I needed momentum. I didn't need to look rich. I needed to be rich in time. And here's the best part. When success finally shows up, when the harvest comes, when the work pays off, you don't even have to say a word. People will see it, not because you told them, but because it's undeniable. If you're in the building phase, don't waste energy chasing applause. Chase mastery, chase depth. Stay under the radar and above distraction. Let the world wonder what you're working on until it's too big to ignore. Because when you build quietly, you don't just arrive in style, you arrive in strength. There comes a moment when you stop chasing money for what it can buy and start pursuing it for what it can build. That shift changes everything. Because wealth, when it's only a desire, stays fragile. It's something you want, but not something you commit to. It's optional. But when wealth becomes a duty, a responsibility, you no longer leave it to chance or emotion. You move with intention, with discipline, with legacy in mind. See, wealth isn't just about nicer things. It's about better choices. It's about your children growing up with options you never had. It's about breaking cycles that have existed for generations. It's about being the one who changes the trajectory of a family, a community, even a future. And that kind of wealth, that starts when you stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, What am I called to build? I remember the first time that shift happened in me. I was doing okay, earning more, saving more, but I realized I was still playing small, still thinking about how to avoid discomfort, how to enjoy success personally. But then I asked myself, what am I modeling? If someone watched my life, my habits, my choices, my discipline, what would they learn? Would they see a life of reaction or a life of principle? That's when I sat down and wrote one simple financial value I wanted to pass on: discipline. Not just how to make money, but how to respect it, how to plan, how to pause, how to persist when it's boring. And from that day, I made it my mission to live that value in how I budgeted, in how I spoke about money, in how I handled pressure. Because wealth isn't something you hand down, it's something you model, something you become. So if you're serious about building a life that matters, don't just desire wealth. Decide that it's your duty. Choose a value that money alone can't buy: discipline, generosity, independence, and start living that value like someone's future depends on it, because it does. Wealth becomes powerful not when it enriches your lifestyle, but when it enriches your legacy. Now, you've heard the principles. You've felt the pull between the mindset of lack and the mindset of abundance. And maybe for the first time, something inside you shifted. Not just a motivation, but a decision. Because that's what changes lives. Not hearing truth, but acting on it. Wealth isn't built on inspiration. It's built on discipline, alignment, and daily application. Every philosophy we've walked through treating small money with respect, investing before spending, valuing time, building quietly, learning the game. These aren't just ideas, they're invitations. Invitations to step out of survival thinking and into strategic living. You don't need a perfect plan to begin. You just need to begin. Start with 30 minutes of learning today. Audit your environment this week. Choose one financial value and live it out this month. These small shifts, repeated over time, will create a life most people only dream about. Not just a wealthy life, but a purposeful one. One with options. One with freedom. One that blesses others because you had the courage to build it right. Don't wait for the world to give you permission. Don't wait for better conditions or clearer skies. Start now. Decide today that you're done thinking like the broke. That you're done entertaining small, reactive, poverty-rooted beliefs. Shift your mindset and your life will follow. Slowly, yes, but surely. Because wealth doesn't show up overnight. It shows up when your actions finally match your vision. So here's your call to action. Pick one principle from today and live it. Let it reshape your thinking. Let it stretch your habits. And let the results speak for themselves in time. Because once you shift your mind, you shift your money. And when you shift your money, you shift your life.